Hi everybody, this is Andy. I'm the prop chef here at Two Perspective Studio. Today we're going to be making a fake version of the somewhat viral Dubai chocolate candy bar, which is stuffed with a pistachio cream, and in it there are filaments that are basically, it's phyllo dough, shredded phyllo dough that's chopped finely and mixed into this pistachio cream. So that's how the real candy bar is made. They typically have these designs on them, these diamond bar designs on them. You can wrap these after they're completely dry. You can wrap them in the gold candy paper that you can find in stores just about everywhere. You can give these as gifts, use them as props around your home. They are super realistic, and I'm going to show you how to make them today. So I'm going to put these aside here. First thing you're going to need is the mold. To make these candy bars, whether real or fake, and we'll be making fake ones here today, you'll need to purchase the mold that is specific for these bars. It is a 1-inch deep mold, and this one has 2 sections. This is the section we'll be using today to get that diamond pattern on the top that the Dubai chocolate bars typically have. This section can be used as well to make other kinds of candy bars, so don't discard that. You can definitely make you a nice thick candy bar that you can wrap in paper, give as gifts at the holidays and different things. So that's the first thing you're going to need. We're also going to be spraying this with a little bit of, this is just the PAM spray like you use in your kitchen on pots and pans. Spraying your silicone molds with a little bit of spray. They do have silicone release sprays that you can use for these silicone molds as well, but I find that the PAM spray in a very light coating is just fine. It works the same. You don't want too much in there. If you feel like you have too much, you can always dab some out with a paper towel. Next thing you're going to need is some air dry clay. This is a Model Magic clay. I typically use the Model Magic clay. This one is made by the Crayola company. You can buy these in several different places. Model Magic is stiffer than the normal foam clay that is used by some of the crafters who do foods. I do use foam clay for some of my projects, but in something like this I want a very stiff clay that's going to hold its shape and hold these nice diamond patterns in the outside of the chocolate bar. So the Model Magic really holds its shape when you're doing things very well. You'll have to knead this product quite a bit more than foam clay. If you are familiar with how foam clay works, you just have to knead it 6 or 7 times basically to get the air and everything meshed through it. The Model Magic is a stiffer clay, requires more kneading, usually 5 to 10 minutes. You see how that snapped there? That means that it's not ready yet. You want to make sure that when you pull, you get more of like a taffy style pull. So I'm going to knead this for just a few more minutes. If you don't knead it thoroughly, you can get cracking in the end result of your product, and you definitely don't want that. So taking the time to knead it properly and warm the clay is very important. Then all you're going to do is press the clay into the mold. Let me see if this is... See how you're getting that nice stretch now and it's not breaking or snapping? That means it's about finished. So I will roll this, and as I'm pressing on my desk and rolling at the same time just to dispense any air bubbles out of here, which can also cause cracking in your clay. I'll do this a few times. It also gets out the seams and the wrinkles. And I'm also elongating this so that it's going to fit into the mold a little bit better, and I have to do less pulling and stretching. So I'm going to put it in the mold, and I'm just going to push until it is, and I'll also squish the mold back together this time if it's this way if it starts to expand. I took the liberty of measuring out my clay before I started this video. That's why I have just the right amount. If you don't come up with the right amount the first time, you can always take some out or, you know, readjust as needed. So you just want to make sure that you're pressing very well to get the indentations of those diamond patterns. Then all you're going to have to do is let it fall right out. That's the beauty of the Pam spray. Now you have just the right look. Now what you're going to want to do is take this, if you have a rack that you can set this on to allow uniform airflow around the top and the bottom, that's the best way to dry this out. If you don't have a rack, flip it over every few hours. You want to let that dry for about 24 hours before you go on to the next step. When I did the first one, I only let it dry about 2 hours, so it's not absolutely necessary, but you may have a better result. This one I let dry overnight, and then I'm going to come to the next phase, which is you can use a serrated steak knife for this, or in the studio I have the handy hacksaw. I'm going to turn this up on its side and very carefully, right about in the middle, like if you were breaking the chocolate bar to, you know, break it in half, see the filling or whatnot. I'm going to go right about in the middle, and very gently I'm going to start sawing this. I like using the hacksaw on the clay because it has a very fine blade and doesn't disturb the clay too awful much. Okay. Just as easy as that. Now you'll notice the middle of the clay is not all the way dry. It takes 3 to 4 days, sometimes even more if you live in a very humid climate. It can take more than that for the clays to dry all the way through. I'm just patting some of the leftover dusty part here, the little crumbs. I'm going to get those off my little work thing here. I'm using a silicone mat here for this. I can paint on, I have a tile surface that I work on normally. You can put paint on these silicone mats that you can buy. These are great for cooking in your regular kitchen. They're also great for crafting. So once you're at this stage, you want either an X-Acto knife, or you can use one of these. This is a needle tool. It's just basically a straight little needle device that's used for clay. I'd probably start with the X-Acto knife. Put that down. And I'll cut a line on the top and on the bottom probably about 1/4 inch in. You have to think of how candy bars have their filling. There's still a lot of chocolate around the outside. So I'm going around in a whole rim there, leaving about 1/4 inch on all sides. Then what you want to do is take your needle tool, or you can use the X-Acto knife. Just be careful that you don't cut yourself or pull too much out. But you just want to start removing some of that filling. And you don't need to remove a ton, because all you want to do is simulate where you can see, to where this looks like the whole bar is filled, but it's not. It's just right there on the edge. So you're just wanting to make a cavity where you can put some of your filling. I'm going to try and use this X-Acto knife on this one to see. And I just want to pull some of the clay out. And you'll need to do that sort of little by little. And I want about that much on the opening. So you go in about 1/4 of an inch in, maybe 1/3 of an inch. Just enough to get some filling in there and make it look like, you know, a realistic candy bar with filling. And you need to be careful because your clay isn't all the way dry. You don't want to squish those diamonds that you worked so hard to maintain. Treat things with a gentle hand. Don't squish things in too much when you're working on these clay pieces. So I have a cavity in there about 1/4 of an inch in. I took the clay out. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. The longer you let your bar dry before you do this process, the better off you are, because the drier the outside is, the more it'll stay intact when you're trying to manipulate this part. So there I have both cavities, and then we'll go on to the next step, which is painting. So these chocolate bars are a fairly, I don't think they're made out of strictly dark chocolate. I think there's probably a milk chocolate and a dark chocolate version. I don't know that for sure. I've actually never had one. I've seen lots of pictures. So I made sort of a mix of a milk and dark chocolate color. So what I used for that are 2 different colors of a brown paint. This is a burnt umber. This is by Liquitex. It comes, there's many companies that make these styles of paints, so don't feel like you have to get a Liquitex. This is a Master's Touch. This is a raw umber. The burnt umber is a little bit more milk chocolatey. The raw umber is a little more dark chocolatey. I prefer, when I'm doing chocolates, to do a mix of both, and then I'll lean one toward the other depending on what I want it to look like. For this case, I'm going to use more burnt umber and just a little bit of the raw umber to do this sort of chocolate bar appearance here. So what you want to do is find you a small Having a container to mix your paint works pretty well. I'll put some, now you don't need a lot of paint for this, but you need a decent amount. So I'm going to put some of the burnt umber and then I'm going to put just a little bit of the raw umber. And then because chocolate bars have a classic glossy appearance, I'm going to be using a Mod Podge in the gloss. And I'm going to add that right into my paint container. Just a little bit. There's no right or wrong way to do this. If you don't want to put your gloss Mod Podge into your paint, you don't have to. You can paint first and wait for it to dry, and then you can put a gloss over the end result. Either way will work. So I'm going to just stir this in with my Mod Podge, just to gloss up that paint just a little bit. And then using a flat paintbrush, this is a number 9 flat brush. It's about a 1/2 inch. You can use a bigger one if you're used to painting. You may also want to use a glove at this point, which I think I may do. Just because you're going to get some paint on your hand. So I'm going to be starting at the top and the sides, and I'm just going to put a generous amount of paint using long strokes to try and keep the brush stroke effect as minimal as possible. That's another thing that the Mod Podge does. It helps smooth out your brush strokes. Using a soft paintbrush will also help. I do the sides first, then I'll do the back, and then I'll do the top. And I'm going to wait until these are completely dry to do the bottom. Now the long brush strokes are a little more difficult on the top because of the diamond patterning. So you just have to sort of do your best to make sure that the paint is smooth and the brush stroking is minimal. And you probably need to go in a couple of different directions to make that all happen. I'm also going to be doing the front right here. I'll take my brush and dab along the front and a little bit on the inside, just because if by chance some of my filling doesn't cover the whole thing, I don't want the white part to show. I want it at least to be chocolatey. So that's how I'll do the front. I have this one turned backwards, so I wanted to show you on that one. And I'm just going to dab this one on the front. Maybe I can turn it around a little bit with my paintbrush. There we go. Now I'm going to let that sit and dry for a few minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and do this other one the same way. I'll do the sides and the back, and then I'll set it down and I'll do the top. And don't be afraid if you have to do an extra coat on here. It's no big deal. Just take your time, let it dry, and you'll be very satisfied with your end result. Patience is the name of the game. And using very light feather-like strokes on the top here will give you the best result as well. Okay. So when these are dry, I'm going to flip them over and do the back. Okay, so the bottoms have been painted. Everything is reasonably dry. I pulled out my trusty hair dryer to speed the process along just a little bit. Oh. I'm going to get some of this paint wiped off of here. Okay, so both bars are ready to be filled. I have, this is called lightweight spackle. Use this for a lot of different things in the fake food making process. It usually dries up in, depending on how thick, it can dry up in as little as 24 hours, but it could be a few days if you get it a little bit thicker. I put some in a cup, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this is a light olive green paint made by Master's Touch. Any paint that you see that's this pistachio color, I felt like this was a pretty good pistachio cream color. I'm just going to put some of this into my spackle, and I'm going to mix it in. And there we have a nice pistachio cream color. And then to create the appearance of the chopped phyllo dough pieces, I'm using some thin Excelsior moss. You can find this at just about any craft store, probably places like Walmart, Amazon, things like that. What they do with the shredded phyllo dough is when they're making these, they'll actually put the phyllo dough in a pan and they'll toast it so that it's a little toasty brown color. And it enhances the taste. You're not going to eat this, so we don't have to do that with our Excelsior. All I did was take some pieces, I chopped some pieces off with my scissors, and I have a bowl here, and I just chopped it into little tiny pieces like the shredded phyllo would be. Once they toast it in a pan, they'll take a chopping knife and they'll chop it into all these little pieces. And then they combine it with this pistachio cream. So that's what we're going to do here. We're just going to put it right in there, and we're going to mix it around so that it has that chunky appearance. I'm not going to mix it like completely in all the way, because I'm not sure that I'm going to use all of this spackle. So I'm just sort of leaving it on the part that I think I'm going to use, if that makes sense. Then I'm just going to take my popsicle stick and very carefully put it in there to where you'll be able to see some of the fake phyllo pieces sticking out. Now you don't want to put too much filling in here, because when you break a candy bar open, the filling is going to be right there. It's not going to like be bulging out. So you need to make it look realistic. But I am going to have it to where that those phyllo pieces are definitely visible on the outside. And then I'm going to do the same with the other side of the bar. And like I said, you're giving the illusion of the whole bar is filled, but nobody knows that it's not. Okay. And it's as easy as that to make these fake Dubai chocolate pistachio cream filled chocolate bars with the signature diamond pattern on them. Now they sell the gold chocolate wrappers, lots of different places. So if you wanted to give this as a gift, you can buy some of the chocolate wrappers and just follow the instructions and wrap your bar. If not, you can stage these on a plate. You could make these into a cute little wall hanging by putting them on a little canvas with some decorative paper put behind it. Lots of different things that you can do with fake foods. Fake food art is a big deal right now. Lots of people have fake food art on their walls. So experiment with the Dubai chocolate bar. I hope yours comes out as delicious looking as mine does. One of these days, maybe I will get a taste of one of these chocolate bars for real. But until then, I'm definitely satisfied with the fake version. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments. If not, have a great rest of your day. This is Andy signing off. I am the Prop Chef. See you later. Bye.